Hello, PropStat students. In this video, I'm going to give you some help with slide 7, the chi-square test. So what we basically need to do is we need to split the Rotten Tomatoes score and the gross income into buckets. In the directions, it says to split your gross income into 3 buckets and your Rotten Tomatoes scores into 2 buckets. That wasn't really working out for me, so I switched it. You're allowed to switch it too. And in the end, it still didn't work out for me because what we are trying to do is get buckets that are at least 6. And the problem is we don't really have enough data to have that type of distribution. We're just going to do our best with it though. You do need to give it a try. You need to try a few things, but if it doesn't work out in the end, then you can make a statement like I did that says, however, our buckets are too small. The chi-square test is invalid and inconclusive. So let's see how I went about doing this. I'm going to go to my spreadsheet, and the first thing I had to do was the movies I had identified as outliers. I had to throw those out because what they were going to do is they were just going to make a tiny little bucket all by themselves. So I didn't use those at all in my chi-square test. So moving on, my maximum here is about 277 million. And my minimum, the bottom of my list, is 67 million. So I had to subtract those two numbers and then divide that range by 2 to figure out how to spread out my data. And let's see, this is my sheet 1. I believe next I want to go to sheet 3 or 4. Okay, so here's just Rotten Tomatoes scores and gross, and I sorted it by the Rotten Tomatoes scores to determine 10 was my smallest. I believe 98 is my largest. 10 to 98 didn't split evenly, so I made it 10 to 99, and I made buckets of even size for the Rotten Tomatoes score. Then I took 10 to 39, like this, and I moved it onto its own sheet so I could sort it again by column B. So here's 10 to 39. Now it's sorted by column B, and remember I said that I was going to find the number that I needed to stop at. So I believe my number was about 105 million, but give me 1 second so I can find that number. Okay, so yes, I decided I was going to go from my minimum gross to 105 million, and then the other category would be 105 million to 277 million. And what I did first was I sorted it by Rotten Tomatoes score, and I separated it into groups. So there's one group, you can see there's another group, and there's a third group down there. Then, here's the first group. I sorted it again now by column B. You would just do data, you highlight it, do data, and then sort sheet by column B. And now, I can see that in my group of from 10 to 39 Rotten Tomatoes score, I'm sorting it again, and these are the movies that gross less than 105 million, and these are the ones that gross more than 105 million. So I'm going to put those into my observe value table in a minute. Let's see, I did this again for the next group. So this was 20, no, this is 40 to, let's see again. This was 40 to 69. Okay, so 40 to 69. I then sorted it by column B, and I found less than 105 million here and greater than 105 million here. And then moving on to sheet 9, these are my highest Rotten Tomatoes scores, and these are the movies that gross less than 105 million and more than 105 million. So then I went back to sheet 6 here, and I just counted them up, how many were in each group. So I'm not going to show you every one, but as an example, 10 to 39, so that was in my sheet 7. Here's 10 to 39. I had 5 movies under 105 million, and I had 10 movies over 105 million. So going back here, there's my 5 and my 10. So I filled those in, and you are really hoping to get some buckets that are 6 or more, but these two are 5, which does invalidate my test, but still I do the test to show that I know how to do chi-square. Another thing you could do is instead of choosing the number that's exactly between your min and your max, you could manipulate that number. So we'll talk about that in class 2. All right, so then of course you find your totals for your rows and your totals for your columns. And then here's our expected value. So remember, to get the expected value, you're going to multiply the row total, 15, times the column total, 20, and then divide by the overall total, 45. And you do that for each cell. So for example, this one would be the row total of 18 times the column total of 25 divided by the overall total of 45. So you have your observed table and you have your expected table. And then you're going to take these observed values, and what I did is I took 5, 7, 8, and I put them here, 5, 7, 8, and then I took 10, 5, 10, and I put those here. You've got to put your expected in the same order. So since I did vertically, I'm going to do the same thing here, and then I copied these, and I put them here. You subtract observed minus expected, you square that number, and then you divide that number by the expected. And then here, this is just the total of your last column. And this is your chi-calc. Okay, so then we take that chi-calc and we're going to put that on the slide. Okay, so here's my chi-calc. And my degrees of freedom is the 3 minus 1 times the 2 minus 1, because I have 3 rows and I have 2 columns. To find your x crit value, go to your Unit 8, Day 4 notes. I think I have them here. Okay, and we're looking for 2 degrees of freedom and 5% significance. So looks like 5.991, and that's here. Okay. So also those notes will help you remember how to compare your chi-calc and your chi-crit. Since the chi-calc is less than the chi-crit, we accept the null hypothesis. The Rotten Tomatoes score and gross are independent of each other. That means one doesn't actually affect the other one, which means since they don't affect each other, you wouldn't really derive any information from this scatter plot here. And you can see from the scatter plot too that my R squared was 0, which also indicated no correlation. And then also remember, since my buckets were under 6, I had to make this statement: since the buckets are too small, the chi-square test is invalid and inconclusive.